Please forgive me, love. I know this must be a nightmare for you. I know when you read this, you must already hate me with all your soul, and you are right. I know I'm causing you a horrible pain. I know it will go down in history as a snare. But it's a price I'm willing to pay. You probably d. You probably don't understand how I was able to do what I did. Do that to our own son. Right now you must think that I am a madman. But I have an explanation. Although I know it won't change what you think of me. But I'll explain why I did it. You know very well. You know very well that I was always a very normal person. When I met you, I was just an insecure guy. However, I managed to make you notice me. We spent so many happy moments that will always be in my mind. The day we had our son. It was the most beautiful thing in the world. I had become a father. The next 2 years were perfect with you too. But everything changed soon after the boy turned 2. I remember you went out with one of your friends that night. I stayed to take care of the child. After playing for a while, he fell asleep. Take it to your crib and leave it there. I went down to the living room and turned on the television. About 20 minutes later, I heard that crying was not a norm. He seemed desperate. He seemed desperate. I ran to his room and took him in my arms and pretending to be a tender you. Ask. You have my love. Because you're crying. That's when it happened for the first time. How to describe this? Just remembering it gives me shivers. I finished talking to him and then the boy and I finished talking to him and then the boy answered me. I swear I'll answer you. But it wasn't your you. It was something else, a horrible, very serious you. And sharp at the same time, you see, as if there were hundreds of people talking. It was his lips moving. And what he told me was, I have an. And what he told me was, I have nothing, cursed son of a bitch. After that I didn't know what to do. It was something I just couldn't process. I didn't even scream though I wanted to, and I didn't eat, but by the time I realized it, I was smoking outside the house, trembling with fear without even be. Then you came and asked me what outside and where the child was. Knows because I didn't tell you, I guess, because I knew it was something you just wouldn't believe. I remember I just told you that I had gone out to smoke. And the child was asleep in his crib, even though he didn't even know where he w. Although I didn't even know where I was. I remember that you wanted to enter the house and I didn't want to let you enter alone, so I came in with you and was very surprised when we entered the house. Everything was so quiet. We went up to the boy's room. And there I was sleeping quietly as if not. Sleeping quietly as if nothing had happened. That night I could not sleep. I was very scared. I was afraid that the child would cry during the night. And I had to get up to see what I had. But I was more terrified by the idea that you were going to see him. Leaving you alone with him. It filled me with fear. For a while nothing strange happened. I realized that nothing happened when the three of us were together. So I tried to make us always be together. But obviously it was impossible for me to go to work. And you're equal for that I take a vacation. Although I was very afraid. I thought it was better that it happened to me and not to you. One of those days when you go shopping with your mom. I was sitting outside the house. I didn't like to be alone with him. That idea filled me with fear. So my plan was to stay out there until you arrive and then lie like the other time, saying he had just left. It looked like a perfect plan. But when I was about to finish my second cigarette, I began to hear terrible screams. They were not humans. They were of a cat. Our cat Boris, to the cat we love so much, you and I. He was. We love you and I. He was suffering. You could hear his desperate screams. Damn it! My skin hedgehog almost instantly, and that fear was slow inside me. Finally, I felt the adrenaline rush going through my body, and again arming myself with courage, I decided to enter the house and see what was happening between the stealth. The noises had stopped. But I decided to see what happened, even though it was my son who wanted it. And I worried about him. I climbed the stairs, quickly opened the door to your room. I stood motionless from what I saw. It was a horrible scene. The W.A. The walls were full of tears and covered with blood. The boy was sitting on the floor, in the middle of a big pool of blood with the decapitated cadaver of the cat still side. There were organs everywhere and the cat's eye was eating it. The boy was also playing with the cat's head. Into your hands. Like a ball. He noticed my presence. I look up and fix his eyes on me. Sketch. A macabre smile, and with that demonic you, he told me. How much do you think Mom screams if I rip her head off? After that I could no longer cry from the terror I felt. The boy stood up and began to laugh. It was a chain. It was a chilling laugh. And with that smile she told me. Because crying, bitch, you're just a clown. I laughed again. And slowly came closer to me. I wanted to run. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't say anything or shout. At that moment I heard a scream on the ground floor. Listen to someone climb. Hector. Listen to someone climbing the stairs. Then a hand on my shoulder and a you telling me. What happens? I could finally turn around. And it was you who had come home early. But I was surprised. Your behavior was completely normal. To those structures, it was obvious that you would have already known. The room filled with blood. And the corpse of the decapitated cat on the ground. At that moment I turned my eyes towards the room where the boy was. The blood had disappeared as well as the cat's corpse, and the child was sleeping in its cradle. You asked again what's going on. Well, and I just said, I love them too much. You made that expression of tenderness that I love so much. And you came down to show me what you had bought. I looked back at the room, still confused, and then I understood everything. That thing, whatever was in my son playing with me, enjoyed making me suffer, had become high. He was playing with me. He enjoyed making me suffer. I had become his entertainment. In your bitch pet. In the following days, horrible things happened that I tried to hide from you. When you asked about the cat, I told you that it had surely escaped. The same thing happened when you asked for Y.O. The same thing happened when you asked for your favorite curtains. I said I had thrown them away because they were too old. And you annoyed me. But it was better to tell you that our son burned them trying to start a fire in the house while screaming with a demonic voice. Those things happen almo. Those things happened almost every day. I was really desperate and terrified, and after a lot of thinking, I thought of the wise solution that no one would ever believe me, not even you. Neither my family, much less the police. I knew I was alone. And I knew that somehow my son was suffering. That he was being the victim of something sinister and pitiful. The solution was to end his life and finally free him from that poor thing that was taking over him. And I understood that it was my responsibility to have my own son killed. I planned everything very well. I knew you would leave early. So prepare me. Since yesterday. Says the old axe that was in the basement. And I left it under our bed. I didn't sleep at all night thinking about what I would do. Knowing that it would be the end of everything for him and me. Right after you left the house, I started again. I heard his step. I heard his steps slowly going down the stairs. I took the axe and left the room. He peeped me up the stairs, and there he was in the middle of the room with a lighter in his hand, and that smile on his face. He stared at me and said, "Hello, Papa, you want play with me?" I didn't say anything. I just caved. I didn't say anything. I just kept slowly getting closer to him, with the axe in my hands. At my reaction, he seemed surprised. Probably because this time, I wasn't terrified. He stopped smiling and insisted. "Play with me, worm, let's play burn the slut house." I stood firm and just looked at it. Just look at it cautiously. As I kept getting closer, until I was right in front of him, he raised his face to see me and said, "Because now you're not crying, worm." At that time, let the axe fall on your head. The blood sprinkled my clothes and I screamed desperately, "And this one you see if it was a Kai. And this you see if it was a child's cry. This time it was her you." He fell to the floor and almost immediately began to laugh. I took a kitchen knife and stabbed it in the stomach as many times as I could. He was just laughing with that horrible you. It was a funny laugh. He was making fun of me. There he was lying on the floor bleeding, with blood gushing in his mouth, but laughing at me. He opened his mouth and said, "You are an imbecile. You are killing your own son. You are making him go through unbearable suffering. And not me. It doesn't hurt me. You can't hurt me," I finished saying. And he let out another laugh. I was hysterical. And so he finally stopped. I started crying for what he had done. I was relieved that everything was finally over. Despite that, I cannot live on after what I did. Rather, I don't deserve it. Now it's time for me to leave too. I just hope you're not the one who finds this horrible scene. I decided to leave this note stuck on the door of the house to ask you to please not go in. Just ring the police and stay outside. I must admit I am unsure of what I am about to do. And I think it could happen what happened in the preview. You came to the house and everything went back to normal. Only this time there will be something that will not come back to life. I don't think I'll ever come back to life again. But if there's one thing I'm really afraid of, it's that you go into the house and into the room, and you see him there.